Hello, I'm Dr. Charles Russo. Thank you for being here today. I'm sorry that I can't actually be here in person virtually, so I'm presenting virtually to this virtual conference today. You'll notice on your screen there is a QR code, and that if you use your scanner, it will take you directly to the Substack account to which I have penned an article. In that article, I give a lot of background as to really the micro protocols that I believe really we are lacking in academia. And I don't mean that from our professional standpoint as professors. I really do mean that from the standpoint of a lot of our students. AI is not going anywhere. So you can also use the URL at the bottom of the screen to get you to the article as well. On my Substack, of course, I have also written a lot on critical thinking, argument, mapping, Bayesian logic. And that is one of the things that I truly love and have a passion for. Having been a intelligence analyst for a greater part of 30 plus years for the U.S. intelligence community, that included federal law enforcement, but also local law enforcement, criminal justice, corrections as such. So I look at the intersections of critical thinking, AI, and online learning. We are in this world that technology is greatly outpacing the thought and the concept and the theoretical mindsets of our students. We are in I think, a good position as academics, as scholars, to be able to understand where and how we can use generative AI routinely and really help our students at the same time continue to build their critical thinking skills. So today, I really want you to really understand teaching how to think in an age of AI. I know it sounds so easy. It sounds very easy. But it actually is something I believe is difficult. Difficult for a lot of reasons. Because when I say people, I really do mean a wide range of individuals. We as a society lack critical thinking skills. And AI is not here to replace it and will not replace it. Because AI is not yet to the point that it will create information. Although experts believe within the next 3 to 5 years, generative AI, who already has a PhD level knowledge base, will begin to problem solve on its own. Mind you, it will problem solve on its own. And that's because the agentic AIs are already being built. These agents, if you will, create right now normalized, standardized, mundane tasks such as, say, checking your email and replying to it. Going through your bank statements each day, and yes, you can give it some access, and they're building accesses with agentic AIs to the point that it will be able to do a lot of things that you and I don't want to do. We already know that refrigerators already have some AI built into them, but imagine that it understands what your meal planning is, what you're lacking in your freezer and your refrigerator, and then can automatically order what you need. It can tell you already how many days left a vegetable has until it is turned that it's no longer good. So I want you to be thinking about that. Yes, I'm not talking education, but education, we'll get into that because generative AI through such things as school, Coursology, and many of our learning management systems are looking for ways that have active learning systems well within that use AI in order to enhance, that's what they're calling it, enhance the student experience. So this is usually framed, yes, either as a magic shortcut or we look at it as the existential threat. What is the threat? I don't believe that we actually have a threat. We have to embrace AI. It's not going anywhere. We look back, even myself, a product of the 1970s, and when you had the internet come on board, I do remember a lot of teachers in high school saying that no, this is it's going to end education, and of course the world was on fire. And we didn't see that, did we? We used it as a tool. Now we have to get rid of the thought process of Googleizing everything, right? So either view that, hey, this is a great shortcut to cut and paste directions and pen me an essay in 3 minutes, or it's an existential threat that it's going to take away critical thinking. I'm somewhere in between with those thoughts process. So here is, again, these two unhelpful stories or myths about AI. When I said the magic shortcut, yes, AI, it does equal faster completion, but does it actually equal learning? And therefore, I gotta say, no, I don't believe it does, but I do believe we can get it there with the right frame of mind as instructors. Fluent output is treated as competence. Well, I mean, I use AI quite a bit in helping me pen my essays, articles, research, and everything else. I use it as what it was intended for, because I look at it as, yes, I can still have, and I dictate quite a lot to my AI of my thoughts, my ideas, my paths, my routines, what empirical evidence I'm really looking for. But I'm also asking it from the critical thinking standpoint in the end. I want it to ensure that my argumentation is complete, that my argumentation is not only complete, but it's on target. It doesn't have bias. It doesn't have assumptions. I want it to look at and question me or challenge me about fallacies in my arguments, maybe even my hypothesis, maybe in my research questions. So students optimize for looks right, not is right. And this is why we keep telling students that AI does in fact continue to hallucinate, but it is at 99.8, 99.9% accurate these days that it doesn't hallucinate, right? So what are we looking for from students? And we'll go over this during this session. Myth number 2. So this is the other side of the coin. This is the existential threat. These are the people that has, the hair's on fire. And I met a lot of students who say, I will never use AI in class because I'm worried about getting accused of academic integrity violations. So I understand that, but we have to caution students with that. But at the same time, I believe that we really need to push them because we can do more with AI than we ever thought before, to include visual aids that we could not I would have to take hours using something like a photo editor or PowerPoint to put together, a really good visual diagram, a link analysis chart, something of a temporal analysis that would then really slow me down on some other productivity. So if we say AI equals a cheating crisis, which equals that crackdown, well, we've tried that. We've tried the cheating crisis where we said, okay, we can show, and over the last 3.5 years that generative AI, ChatGPT, has been around, we have seen such detectors fail after fail after fail. Why? Because their algorithms no longer with human language, plain language, learning of these large learning language management systems, machine learning systems, they no longer can capture. So where is that crackdown? Well, we can look for certain words. We can look for certain linking of, say, punctuations, so like the M dashes. Well, M dashes now, if you look within Microsoft Word, have started to change as well. So when you use Grammarly, Quillbot, Microsoft with Copilot, it will start to put those longer M dashes in there. But we as writers, we've used M dashes for centuries because that was a way we can emphasize information. So just because there's an elongated M dash does not mean it equals plagiarism or AI cheating, and then you have to crack down. So detection replaces instructional design. And we started to waste a lot more time on, did this person use AI rather than looking at instructional design? We have to incorporate AI into our classrooms. And that's easy even if your course has not been completely revamped to understand that AI is going to be used. So we train evasion instead of judgment. Yes, that's where the fear comes in with a lot of students of, oh my gosh, I got to stay away from it, I can't use it. And all I'm thinking is, you are missing out on a wonderful tool. Yes, it is a tool. It's a tool that can help them research. It's a tool that can help them learn. Because if they're not really understanding what critical thinking is, or where's my argument? Did I really pen a good argument? Did I look at the premise and outline the 3 premise or 4 of my argument and have the therefore, and does it equal the conclusion? Are they true? But are we as instructors teaching our students, even with the subject matter that we have, are we teaching them, do we even know how to put together a real cohesive argument? And I would have to say, when I start talking to a lot of colleagues, the answer is no. And they're like, but I'm not an English teacher. And I'm like, but you're a critical thinker. You're a PhD. You should understand and I be able to identify the fallacies in an argument or an incomplete argument or a completely incorrect argument. Because if you have 3 premise and 2 out of the 3 are false, how therefore can the conclusion be true? Right? So when we look at, and I know a lot of this is hard hitting, and I do not want to come off harsh. Of course, I'm not here to berate any one individual or institution. So therefore, that's my claim right here. But it is, are we teaching better judgment even in the face of AI? So here's the next thing that we have to look at. AI should train thinking, not replace it. We have to teach our students to utilize artificial intelligence and the tools. So whether Gemini or Copilot, Claude, ChatGPT, now we should also ourselves be setting the example. There's a thing called vibing. I'm not sure if anybody here listening today understands what vibing is, but vibing is that you should, even if you have, say you have a Copilot account and you pay for that, or you pay, $20 a month to ChatGPT. You should at least be using the free versions of what you can, and each day use every single one of those APIs. So again, whether it's Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, and you can build your own if you need to. See, here's the thing that I want you to also be looking at. When we start to use the word hallucinations, okay, right at the very bottom of anything with ChatGPT and Gemini, it says that it's known to make mistakes and therefore you're responsible for checking them. As I stated earlier, 99.8 to 99% of the time, it is complete and correct. Now, it doesn't make up URLs like it used to. It may not be able to go grab the full URL. It may inject, okay, that's that 1/100th, 1/100th of a percent that it would be able to do that. But what there is called the sycophancy, which is its core programming, meaning the first day that it was programmed, that continues. They couldn't replace it. They keep building layers on it, and telling it always will refer to AI as, you can do this, you can't do this, you can do that, but you can't do that. So it's kind of the directions and the commands that it builds upon itself. It continues to have its own guardrails. You can't put anything in there. And I know my global terrorism students and a lot of criminal justice students have a hard time finding certain things or asking certain questions, because AI will continue to say, sorry, that violates my policy. I can't do anything with violence. So, having them look up terrorist thinking and psychology of terrorism, say maybe even in role playing, AI just can't do that. But there are AIs out there that are being generated that are in God mode, meaning that sycophancy actually has been taken out. And now you can ask it pretty much anything. Again, AI has already attained a PhD level knowledge database. It now has access to, say, all the information we need. So how does it do work for somebody else? Well, it's all on the prompting that you and I, whether you're a student or you're a faculty, an academic, a scholar, an independent writer, it is about what we write and how we write it. What are we asking it for? We're giving it the thoughts, the perspectives, the pathway. It's supporting us. That's the support in the learning environment. That's what we should be looking at. How can we use generative AI in a routine manner in higher education, and yet that it becomes a more productive extreme, right? That we are now, if the student is able to really look at information and say, this is what I asked it to do, here's what it gave me, that's not good enough. Where is the argument? I still see AI generated essays that lack an introduction paragraph. The paragraph is lacking a problem, position, argument, purpose, and a clearly defined thesis statement. But shouldn't we teach the students how to do that as well? And we need to. We need to bring these students into the generative AI world, that we can hold them accountable, yet we can scaffold the level of learning. I teach a lot of, I'm on dissertation committees for many other institutions for students who are now in doctoral programs, even within Columbia Southern University, or have been asked to. So when we start to look at, we have to ask the students to verify. So students have to trace their claims to the sources, check the accuracy, and correct errors. And this is one way that I have come up with, because I have made inquiries to American Psychological Association, Chicago, Turabian, and even Oxford with their mechanics and style of writing. And they said that their next editions will have generative AI guidelines, but not as how, but it will still have the seatbelt, if you will, of anti-plagiarism. So I propose that within our reference list, we can have students tell us, I used OpenAI, ChatGPT on this date, this time, here's the prompt that I typed in, and here's the response. The response is, of course, it would show only in a paragraph. You would still cite it. You would be able to cite really a ChatGPT or Gemini and so on as a real reference. This way, the instructor can look at that and say, oh, okay, so we did use AI. So also, I think adding to student handbooks and faculty handbooks that when students, we allow them to reuse or repurpose work, that we should have the caveat that they need to let us know that generative AI was used in the generation of some part or whole of this document, because the onus starts to come back at them. That, okay, we know that yes, it doesn't give them carte blanche to start utilizing AI to write their whole paper, their whole discussion. But what it does do is now it moves to the challenge. Students must generate alternatives. They have to be able to understand what alternative analysis is, what alternative or counter arguments are, and that a lot of times AI can't come up with a lot of that, only the human brain. We have to understand what we're reading, and this is why reading is so important. Illiteracy rates in the United States are dismal when it comes to reading and comprehension and writing. And this is why I say we really need to have students really understand. And then we can ask them to test their assumptions. Remember, we have them usually ask a question, or we're asking them a question in the directions, but they need, if they're going to come out with a conclusion, they need to test, what is that assumption that I made that made that conclusion true or false? That's what we want them to do. So then we have to give them the time, though, to reflect. This is where the critical thinking trail really begins. How decisions were made, how revisions were done, and then, of course, that confidence calibration. We're asking them, or we need to start asking them, how well do you really feel you have done of a job in your conclusion? And this may take some instructional design, that they have to do videos. That yes, they can use AI to help them create their talking points, but it's also the confidence level. Yes, I have 5 screens in front of me. You can see my eyes darting in different ways. And yes, I have my little talking points. I have my article up and I have my recording going on. And so, but what I try to do is, yes, use every tool possible to give you the information and to ensure that I am giving it to you in a manner that is clear, concise, and succinct. But I'm also giving off that confidence, right? I'm not reading from line by line. That you can do. I know you can take in what I'm telling you. You can read my companion article with this and really start to understand as a whole where we're going. And so when we start to look at what changed with generative AI, well, we know fluent text that it writes is really cheap. It came off cheap, especially in 2022, 2023, but it got better in 2024 and 25. We're now seeing really where it is really taking off. I mean, there are whole companies that I can go to a studio for 4 or 5 hours, do a lot of talking, motion, facial expressions, so on and so forth, and it will actually clone me. Then what I can do is take it and plug it into generative AI, like ChatGPT with an agent, and I can have it talk for me. That's why I said today is, yes, I'm not here with you, but I actually am here with you virtually in this presentation. But imagine had I been an AI clone that would have said, hi, I'm here, and be able to answer questions. See, that's the next level. And that's where we have to be thinking that students are going to have judgment. AI can only give you up a certain part or up to a certain level of a response. And it still usually comes out rigid. Not what maybe a student would be thinking, as well as really that the good looking work that we see. I use it, like I said, I dictate to it. I have it help me formulate my topics and my arguments. And I ask these questions of, well, what is a good position? I want to make sure I think this is my position. And I use it as an assistant, almost like we would a graduate assistant, wouldn't we? Or a peer, a colleague that we're talking about. That's the way I use it. And I think that's the way that we should be teaching students to use it. Because then, yes, we can come out with very good products, flawless products that, are we trying to all the time get them to raise to that level? Yes, we are. That's why when we have rubrics, we grade to that rubric. We'd love to give 100% to everybody. Could that be imaginable with generative AI? Yes and no, because we as instructors still get to say the confidence level of, I'm not sure if you get this material or not. Because in the bottom line, like for a dissertation, if you're on a committee, a chair, a committee member at large, you're signing that bottom line that that thesis or doctoral student has the knowledge, skills, and abilities to move to a higher level and attain that doctor. Confidence in AI can reduce critical thinking efforts unless we design against it. Yep, that's the new risk. That is the new risk. And that is where I'm worried about, because when I start talking to students and say, hey, I really like what you wrote, you had a solid discussion here, but seems rather disjointed. Where did you get the premise for your argument? Premise. I've got to ask these words. And a lot of times they're like, what do you mean premise? I use the directions. Yes, you use the directions, but the directions has an argument in there that we've asked you to provide your thoughts, words, and ideas on. Well, now all of a sudden, AI is not the critical thinking that makes it effortless. It now would just, if they plug, you're going to know if they plug and play into generative AI. But we have to design against that. So I do have some micro protocols I want to get through here in the next 15 minutes. I've still got a lot of slides to go, but we're going to get through them. Design implications is, if you grade only the final product, you're now just rewarding the text generation that AI and the student have utilized. So, but if you really grade the thinking trail, you're now rewarding disciplined reasoning. I've written 2 books about this recently, the critical thinking, the precision and perspective. It's a short read, easy read for pretty much, I wrote it for a lot of students and even faculty to at least lay down the premise of understanding what is critical thinking? Why do we need critical thinking? And I do touch on generative AI. Second book is Safeguarding Analytical Integrity. Yes, written towards the national security aspect, but we also do have to safeguard analytical integrity when we do analysis. So integrity by design is going to make our honest work easier. And of course, any kind of substitution that students want to do a lot harder. So what you're going to leave with here today is at least a minimum of defining micro protocols and explain how the difference from generic critical thinking goals, then design 2 AI activities that require reasoning, not just a polished product. I have both in the paper as well as the PowerPoint here. They're actually they're different. So that's why I say it's accompanying. One is not going to explain the other. I wanted to give as much examples and evidence to be able to have you work on that. So adapting an existing discussion or assignment so AI is a thinking scaffold, not a shortcut, and then explain the rationale to students and colleagues on how AI integration increases rigor. Because isn't that what we're looking for, is that rigor. So what do we say to students? This is kind of a script to me, that we want to reduce confusion. We want to make expectations explicit yet fair. Fair. I say, in this course, AI is a tool. It's not a substitute. I've written some things into my announcements. I've made things in videos as well. I've tried to say, hey, AI is really used for brainstorming, drafts, critiques. You can use it, but if you're going to use it, let's disclose it. Although we don't have anything, I just want students to understand the transparency that they can come up with first. We can come up with some transparency first with, hey, I know you're going to use it and I want you to use it, but I want you to use it for good. There's an ethical use. If you're cutting and pasting directions and expecting what it spits out, something that you can turn in, that's not it. That's not what we want. We want you to use it as a research assistant, a tool. Check your assumptions. Ask it for an assumptions check. Is my essay, will it pass an assumptions check? Do I have any fallacies? Now, under fallacies for critical thinking, there are a plethora. There's 18 categories of fallacy thinking and argumentation. But then we can ask, students, you can use Bayesian logic and reasoning. How about argument mapping? Things that AI are going to have a little bit more of a difficult time unless the student spends an inordinate amount of time generating prompts to get to exactly what you want. See, we're kind of making it difficult, but at the same time, we are teaching the students some critical thinking skills. That any factual claims are going to have credible sources. This is where that if they don't understand how the use of AI can really get in there and show me empirical evidence that its current sources not more than 10 years old. It's not some obscure blog that they're not using news, they're not using media, they are using peer-reviewed scholarly articles. This is why I also like Substack myself is, okay, so it's not published in some international journal. Doesn't need to be. This is a new avenue for people to be able to write and get their words out. It's still peer-reviewed. It's not refereed. It's peer-reviewed. People get to make comments. They get to, look at and have a discussion and bring it new life for thoughts, words, and ideas that are expressed. Can those be credible sources? Well, I think they can, and they should be looked at that. So this is part of, because you can go back and you can look at that source, and you, the doctor, you, the instructor, get to go, is that really a credible source? Because this is what a statement was made by that author, but this student cited that author, but that author where they got that information wasn't cited. So it may degrade the confidence level of that information, or it actually may boost it up that, oh, hey, this is secondary and tertiary evidence to support what sources are used. So I think that a student having to submit a thinking trail, some kind of protocol artifact, like I said, at the end of maybe a references, here's the date, time, API that I used, here's the prompt that I used for this material or this sentence in paragraph 1. So we go back to using subscript, so on and so forth. I think that grades reward evidence, should reward evidence, reasoning, and revision, not just the polished. I think having iterative, scaffolded, or laddered assignments in the end will really help our students with critical thinking and, of course, the use of AI. If you can defend your reasoning, you're safe. You're okay. And that's what we need to tell our students time and time again. So grade rigor without the drowning. I mean, let's look at some of the micro protocols that you can do. Rotate some emphasis. You can have grade 1 and 2 steps maybe in 1 week. You're looking at that signals consistency. You're avoiding that overthought overload, which a lot of our students panic when they're like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this and I got to have this and that and I got to use something that maybe I haven't used. Well, then we go into that rubric. Is it sufficient, developing, and what is it missing in order to really push forward the critical thinking aspects? We have to have these students not just thinking about the material that we want them to understand, but we want them to build off of it. We want them and we want to push them to the point that logic and reasoning are being applied as to, hey, I thought I was really in support of this policy, but as I was made through AI and did my research, I'm not sure that I really like that policy. So peer review, let other students look at it and say, okay, they have to run it through maybe their AI. Again, it's that vibing. What vibing does is it really allows you and I as instructors with our names attached to look at the algorithms. It's going to push out algorithms to see where and who is using what. If you use it to write articles, to research and all that, vibing, going through separate APIs is really going to help as well. So we should develop some kind of a checklist that has feedback, more than just the open text to a rubric. I'm talking about where we can have that feedback to a student that we say, your introduction paragraph is good, but it's missing an argumentation. Here's when I ran it through AI, here's the argument that I found. Because even if they say, well, that was my own work, that was my brain coming up with that. Yes, but did you use it as a critical thinking tool to bounce the idea off of a machine that is smarter than our graduate students, our undergraduate students, and of course, smarter than a lot of PhDs, because that's where it's going. By 2035, it will have already solved world problems, theorems, conceptual issues. It will be able to see problems, solve them before they actually become a problem. I know to a lot of people, this is really scary what it can do. Is it kind of that minority report that it can say, hey, if the first order, second order, third order of things happens, it's going to lead to this. But I think within academia, we can still push forward human thought and generate new ideas by the use and assistance of AI. So I think that's where students can learn some standards as well. And again, I think that I probably will go a little bit over, so I'm going to have to wrap it up here soon, because like I said, we're going to get into the micro protocols that I believe that with the paper accompanying and the micro protocols, you should be able to do just fine. Integrity by design, it's not a detection. We have to get away from that spending time to catch AI and really just focus now on assessing judgment. We can do that. We've already talked about much of these as well throughout the last 30 minutes or so. So here are some what I look at as the unit of rigor that scales. It's small, it's repeatable routines that really force specific thinking. Repeatable, same move, same context. We just have short enough that they can use weekly. Maybe that's coming up with a real world scenario each week. But that they have to pick out, say within another scholarly article that maybe that was written, say 5, 10, 15 years ago. You can have them build a habit of repetition of being able to say, wow, this problem, it's full of holes. It's got fallacies. The premises are wrong. They can help pick those out. It's observable. We're asking them to really start to provide those artifacts. Do that log, that matrix, that checkpoint that can show the instructor that they did some critical thinking, yet they're still looking at the material. And it's accessible. We can assign points to it. We can grade it, but we're really grading not only the substance and the comprehension of that, but we're also grading that they understand critical thinking. So when you have to look at verification or verify, challenge, and reflect. Those are the building independence by making students do what AI can't do responsibly. Again, AI is going to give you very blunt, sometimes very generalized information. It can't tell you the so what for. So it's up to us to train that epistemic hygiene. And that's what I really look at to this day is what we're missing. Yes, we need to teach the younger generation how to read and how to think. Philosophy is a significant part of that, but so is philosophy and verification. We have to investigate. Well, it's a community of inquiry that we're trying to build with these students and with ourselves, right? So we have to use triangulation. Let them give one claim. Then they have to find 3 independent sources that directly support that claim. You can do hallucination logs. You can ask really for them to use AI and find 5 factual claims, verify it, and then see, does AI come out wrong or correct? And how do they remove that? Part of that is also vibing as well. So the instructor, you get to do a lot more of the visualizing and so on and so forth. So here's one of the other source triangulation that I started to give you. Again, if anybody ever wants to just sit down and go over what, in a deeper sense, I felt like you can read these and understand what it is that a student should do, how you can incorporate that into your work, and then have the student pretty much within design have the assignment completed. So this is kind of the Steelman is the counter argument, and that's what I think we really lack. Students aren't prepared for or usually shun away from a counter argument. They don't reflect. Why? Why do students not reflect on information? These are questions that I think having the thinking trail is going to help students and faculty alike really understand where we need to go and where we'll end up. So when we look at online discussions, we have to have that cognitive presence. We really need to ask ourselves, do we understand cognitive or metacognitive? A lot of times we don't even have metacognitive exercises to understand my own bias, my own assumptions, right? That's not posting. They just post. It's usually I see a lot of words. We tried and we failed to get them stop doing the I really like what you said, the mere agreement, but really get into that inquiry. Why did you write that? Where did you get this information? Yes, I think that discussions should always be supported by research because, yes, they're giving their own thoughts and ideas, but they're making claims. They have no evidence, and then they're not warranted to do anything. They have no idea how to really counter argue or rebuttal somebody else's claims or statements, let alone that someone even is able to make a coherent, cohesive argument and such. So again, these are just redesignings for products and essays and why this really matters when we start to look at a lot of this information that is out there these days. It's significant during some of these surveys, which is crazy, right? So when we look at the implementation, I want you to start to look at how these practical rollouts can be done. So the 3 takeaways and the 1 challenge I want to give you is about micro protocols, turning critical thinking into something that's repeatable, gradable behaviors, not only for your students, but yourselves. AI should be a foil, right? Students should verify, challenge, and revise. We should be that gatekeeper to really help them and push them. Integrity scales when you grade thinking trails, not just the product. Yes, we're still going to expect a product, but we want to put some emphasis on that critical thinking trail. So the challenge is redesigning one assignment you have using a thinking trail template, and that AI won't replace or can't replace unexamined work. And then the guardrails. Here's what you should state explicitly to students, that yes, privacy, you still don't want to plug in names, social security numbers, phone numbers, addresses, but you also want to ensure there's not over reliance on information and calibration. You want to ensure that the students are using these tools and techniques with a mindset that says, I'm using it in a manner that I'm not going to show bias. I want to write in, here's what I'm thinking, and it's one way. Show me 3 other ways of thinking. Help me with a hypothesis. I want you to help me disconfirm evidence and missing information or missing voices, so on and so forth. So with that, my closing thought is that AI won't eliminate critical thinking. That's where I'm at. I'm here to push only because, yes, in the last few years, I really got more in depth because of AI and having taught at a high school in literature, English, research, cybersecurity, that the parents and other faculty K through 12 are so worried about AI being used as a cheating system that we forgot that it can be a tool to help them think critically. They already lack critical thinking skills. Gen Alpha, Gen Z, millennials have a lot of critical thinking issues, the lack thereof. So it's going to expose, we can use it as a tool that's going to expose whether critical thinking is really happening. So if you have thoughts, concerns, or questions, please reach out to me. I can be reached at my email address, charles.russo@columbiasouthern.edu, or this is my QR code to my Linktree, which then gives you access to other ways to reach out to me, to see social media, such things as my larger Substack, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. So this is the day and age, right? I don't just have to put out phone numbers. So with that, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate the honor and the privilege to be presenting to you today. And of course, here in 47 minutes, we can't solve the problem, but we can start to learn from one another of how to teach in the age of AI. Thank you.